I don't know about you, but I am not expecting a lot of players that are eligible to return to actually return to Syracuse next year.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on this week's Poll Friday, I asked you guys the question: over or under 3.5 returning players to Syracuse basketball next season. Now, I asked this question back on Monday, and that was before we learned that Kyle Cuffe is entering the transfer portal, per On3's Joe Tipton. So that's one possible returner that's already off the board. The rest of the eligible returning players are as follows. You got J.J. Starling, you got Chris Bell, Chance Westry, Donnie Freeman, Elijah Choppa Moore, and Peter Mastorovich. There were over 150 votes on this week's Poll Friday, and I think this was the closest poll question that we have ever done here on Locked On Syracuse. The winner was under 3.5 players at 50.5%, meaning over 3.5 was at 49.5%. So our friends over at FanDuel, they might want to consider hiring me because I'm pretty good at setting these lines, right? Nearly getting a 50-50 split right there. My belief, there will be under 3.5 returning players for Syracuse basketball next season. And even before the Kyle Cuffe news, I was already leaning towards under, because after Adrian Autry's final press conference, if you listen back to it, the fact that he chuckles at the question about returning players, that kind of signaled to me, and perhaps to you as well. I mean, we reacted to it here on Locked On Syracuse that, yeah, I would not expect a lot of returning players for the Orange next season. So who do I believe is ultimately going to be out the door for the Orange? I'd love to hear from you first in the comments section below who you think is going to leave Syracuse in the portal or perhaps go pro. Number one, Kyle Cuffe. He's already out. He is entering the transfer portal. He did say that he was planning to return to Syracuse, but I am not surprised that he's entering the portal ultimately. It just makes sense for both sides because Kyle Cuffe, I don't know how he was going to see the floor next season with all the guards that are coming in. Then you have Chance Westry. Now, Chance Westry, he came to Syracuse from Auburn in 2023. He had a lot of promise, but unfortunately, over the last couple of years, injuries have taken their toll. And I think that for Chance Westry and for Syracuse, it just makes sense that both go their separate ways. Perhaps Chance Westry can go to a mid-major school, get healthy, revive his value, and then he can come back to a high-major school in 2026-27 if all goes according to plan. Then you have Chris Bell. And I think the writing is on the wall with Chris Bell. He could not build off his promising 2024, where he was one of the best three-point shooters in the ACC. In fact, he regressed this season. I understand that he got a little bit better shooting as the year went on, but still, the totals are all down from what they were a year ago. It just makes sense. Chris Bell can go elsewhere. Perhaps he finally develops into the player I think all of us think that he can be. And Syracuse could also wipe the slate clean, perhaps get a new player to fill that void that Chris Bell would leave, i.e. Kobe McGee. Perhaps someone that I mentioned with Neil Adler, Syracuse is interested in Kobe McGee. Seems like he'd be the perfect Chris Bell replacement. And finally, you got Elijah Choppa Moore. This one is, again, a little bit controversial, but it's possible that Choppa Moore could develop into a great college basketball player, perhaps even a pro basketball player. But if he stays with Syracuse this offseason, he is going to have to force the staff's hand into playing him next year. Even if JJ Starling, let's say, does not return, Syracuse basketball, I highly doubt, is just going to let Elijah Choppa fill that void. Probably not, right? Most likely, they'll go into the transfer portal and try to find someone to replace JJ Starling, so that player will be better than Elijah Choppa. You have Kyan Anthony coming in, a top 30 high school recruit in the country. He is rated a lot higher than Elijah Choppa, by the way. Then you factor in that Luke Fennell is a point guard coming into Syracuse basketball. And even if you don't expect him to have a lot of playing time, Syracuse is probably going to add a starting point guard in the transfer portal. So you add everything up together, it's very similar to Kyle Cuffe, where is the playing time for Elijah Choppa? Where is it? Either he stays and improves significantly, or he leaves this offseason. Now, coming up, we'll talk about Donnie Freeman and JJ Starling. I keep going back and forth on 50-50 on them. And then Peter Mastorovich, he seems to be the one guy that all of us can agree on. He is most likely returning. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada PRO-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada PRO-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. With longer days, I love getting outside for a hike or a run. Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. 50-50. Anyone's guess on these two players, JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman. Here's what we know. We know that 24/7 Sports insider Mike McAllister said on Q Sports Talk that Syracuse is prioritizing keeping JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman as returning players for next season. But that does not mean it'll work. JJ Starling, I don't think would enter the NBA draft. I don't think he's good enough, but I could see him entering the transfer portal and perhaps getting a big payday elsewhere. It's entirely possible, right? And Syracuse might at that point walk away from it. That could happen. Then you have Donnie Freeman, and it's a double-edged sword with Donnie Freeman. He could decide to enter the NBA draft and at least get feedback from scouts, what he needs to improve upon. See, that's the thing with the NBA draft is you can enter it, and then there's a deadline for you to also exit it. It's a lot more lenient than the NFL draft. So he could decide to do that, or perhaps just stick in the draft altogether. Probably wouldn't play in the NBA much, if at all, next season, but at least would be a G Leaguer. That's entirely on the table. And if he decides to stay in college, well, perhaps he enters the transfer portal. And when you look at Syracuse basketball's roster, the two most desirable players from an outside perspective are Donnie Freeman and JJ Starling, and it's not particularly close. And in the age of NIL and the transfer portal and all this money being thrown around and all the relationships that these people have, I would be stunned if there wasn't any tampering going on with these guys. Stunned. because it's happening all across the country. I would be shocked if their coaches and GMs around the country are not trying to poach those guys, JJ Starling and Donnie Freeman, as we speak. Okay, so that's 50-50. I have no idea. Finally, near 100%, where this is the one guy where I'm like, yeah, it just makes too much sense for the two sides to stick together, and that's Peter Mastorovich. I would legitimately be surprised if he entered the portal. He's definitely not going to the pros, so the only way he leaves Syracuse is the portal. And the only way it would make sense for Peter Mastorovich to enter the portal is if Syracuse quite literally tells him to enter the portal because they say to him, you're not going to play that much next year. That's the only way it makes sense. And then Peter Mastorovich probably transfers out, goes to a mid-major program, tries to kind of do what I'm suggesting with Chance Westry, build up your value in a mid-major, and then come back to a high major. But I don't see that happening with Peter Mastorovich. He's still raw, but he showed a lot of heart this past season. I think he could be a solid, scrappy, high major Division I basketball player when he is done developing. And I don't see why Syracuse or Peter Mastorovich would want to give up on that just yet. Now, look, if he plays the entire year next year and he doesn't really get that much better, well, then the two sides might go their separate ways. But I don't think it makes sense right now. So in summary, on this week's Poll Friday, over under 3.5 returners, I am saying 3 or less returners. So I am taking the under. I would love to hear from you in the comment section below what you think is going to happen this offseason. Now, as far as what is coming up here on Locked On Syracuse in the future, Saturday, no podcast, but on Sunday, got 2 podcasts for you all. First one, this will be released during the day, a football catch-up podcast. There's a lot of news going on, some good, some bad with Syracuse football. We're going to discuss the spring roster. Zeed Haynes is not on it, but Mark Petrie, I believe, is on it, so that's good. And there's also some good recruiting news and bad recruiting news that we will go over in a full football catch-up podcast. And then at midnight, heading into Monday, the plan is to have a full podcast, a Syracuse guide to the transfer portal, because the transfer portal opens up on Monday, March 24th. So that's what's coming up here on Locked On Syracuse. And thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. And you can find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.